Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's always an absolute honor and a pleasure to have you watch us every evening, week after week. And even with this change of season and the change of time, to still have you watching us is something we always take a lot of pride in. Now, as we join you tonight, I know lots and lots of you are excited about this. I've had lots of chatter about chatting to Wonga, and we actually have Wonga in flesh. Wonga, how are you doing?
I'm good, but are you well?
No, I'm very well, thanks. Thank you so much for making time for us.
No worries, always, but always.
For those of you who've just joined in, this is Africa Sports Consultancy. We seek to empower African athletes, and we do that in any means possible. And today's a good example. We have Wonga here joining us, and he has quite the story to tell. Wonga, weird times we're living in at the moment. How are you keeping?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. We just obviously gone to level 1, which is good for everybody, and club cricket is back, which is also, it's good for everybody. Schoolboy cricket friendly matches are happening, and just generally, it's been quite tough on obviously everybody, as a country, but more so in sport, because you remember last season the cricket season finished early, and it literally didn't happen in Cape Town this year as well, so which was a bit hard on the guys, but we got back about a couple of weeks ago, and just the turnout has been awesome. So yeah, it's a massive positive. So yeah, things are looking up. Yeah.
I have to warn you, it's half an hour. I've got a ton of questions for you, and it goes very quickly. So I'm going to dive straight into it. Like,
cool, no worries, no worries. I'll try to be brief with my answers as well.
Brief. I don't know you and brief. I don't know if you go together. But yeah, Wonga, straight into it. Now, tell me about your childhood. Tell me about where you grew up.
I grew up in Khayelitsha. I think it's just like pretty much like a normal childhood, I guess. Normal, I don't know, it's the only thing I knew, you know what I mean? I went to school literally like 2 minutes from my house, which is where I actually started picking up sports. Both parents were working at the time. So, I mean, I wouldn't say my childhood was hard at all. You know what I mean? I don't, like, I've seen what hardness is, but I'll be lying if I said just because I come from Khayelitsha, I come from poverty. That would be a lie. So I definitely did have a happy childhood, and then yeah, picked up sport at school. We had good leadership in primary school. I learned the primary, so our rugby was good, our cricket was good, our soccer was good, and the school was run properly. Yeah, that's pretty much until I was about 12 when obviously the bursary happened. I don't know if you want me to get into that or you got a question coming up about that.
I told you, Wonga and brief doesn't quite go together. We're going straight into it. It's brilliant. I absolutely love it. It's brilliant. And Wonga, this might be a bit of a tough one, but growing up, I don't know if you can remember that long ago. You old guys, sometimes it becomes a bit far. What was your definition of success growing up in Khayelitsha?
Growing up, before I was 12, I think I didn't even think much about that, to be quite honest. I was just a kid, man. We were happy, we're just doing what we do. We knew what we knew, you know what I mean? We played sport literally every single day. And the funny thing is, remember, even back then, even the guys who we watched play sport on TV were not even professionals. So it's unlike, and remember, there was no social media, so we didn't see their lives, we didn't see their flashy lifestyles or anything like that. So for me, I didn't even think about what it was until I was 12. When I got a bursary to go to wet pubs, that's literally the first time I actually started thinking, oh man, hang on, people can actually acquire this amount of money and have all of these things. So living in Khayelitsha then, I think it was literally, even though I played cricket against other white schools we played against Rwanda and all of those schools, like those thoughts didn't come into my mind literally until I went to boarding school.
And you mentioned wet pups, for the sake of our viewers at home who don't know what is wet pups.
It's Western Province Prep. It's it's a private school in Newlands, and look, 95% of the kids end up at Bishops. So that's the people might get an idea what type of school it is.
Okay, I'm tempted to ask a few more questions there, but I'm going to
Go
hold my
ahead, yeah,
horses
no
for
worries.
now.
Go ahead.
For now, but now when we talk about Wonga,
Yeah.
is it Wonga from Khayelitsha or is it Wonga from Wynberg?
It's well, that's a proper question, and I'm gonna try to be brief with that one as well, because it's something that I've always thought about, and something that I even still fight about now. Even when I read newspapers of professional players and they will say, "I know this guy comes from this club," and I'll be like, "No, he actually doesn't." And it's a big part of me. I'll tell you a story. I told you that I started playing cricket at Lwandle. I think I must have been about 9 or 10, around about those ages. And I got a bursary when I was 12. I was playing for my school was Lwandle, and then I was also playing for Khayelitsha Cricket Club. And I remember when I made province the first time, it was while I was Western Province. I literally spent a couple of months. It was like once cricket term at Western Province prep, and then I got chosen for the provincial side. So it used to be on the newspapers back then. And so when I read my name and then it did the school in brackets, I was like, oh, hang on, I got a Western Province prep. You know what I mean? It funny, and I thought to myself, oh, hang on, in a way, I felt bad for Khayelitsha Cricket Club, and I felt bad for Lwandle Primary School, because that's where I learned how to play the game. And I spent a couple of months at Western Province Prep, and now I'm a Western Province Prep boy who's a provincial player at that age group. So I felt it is the story that needs to be told. I used to always tell people then, guys, even in high school at Wynberg, when I went to Wynberg, eventually I'll be, because a lot of guys, cricketers, were coming from Gwalanga back then. So they used to admit, they used to think I'm from Gwalanga. I'm like, no, I'm actually from, a Khayelitsha. So it's something for me that I still fight, even with the boys that are coming through the system now. It's very, very important. They might be playing for your Runabout cricket clubs now, or your Clermonts or whatever, but it's very, very important that their stories about where they learned to play the game is actually mentioned. So Wynberg was a school that I spent, but I'm from Khayelitsha Cricket Club, and I'm from Khayelitsha. That's literally where I learned how to play the game.
And when you think about your transition, obviously coming from Khayelitsha to Wynberg, let's go Wynberg boys high. How was that transition? Because I would imagine now you've got, and I'll paint the picture for you here. Yeah. Now you've got your friends that you grew up with in the township, and now you've got friends from Wynberg. Yeah. How did you handle that?
To be honest, the Wynberg one was much easier than the Western Province one. The Western Province prep was much harder because the quality of life that the kids were having, it's a private school. The kids were incredibly rich, you know what I mean? And it's a small school, private school, and I was the only black kid in the school. There was just no other black kids. So that for me was hard. It was incredibly hard. And I actually used cricket just to make myself feel good. So like you'll be at school and you'll be struggling with a couple of things and you'll be like, I got cricket practice. You know what, I'm gonna actually show them that I'm good enough. It was, for me, it was that. So when I went to Wynberg, I was integrated already, so to speak. So to be quite honest, I mean, Wynberg to me was a better fit than Western Province Prep, but I needed Western Province Prep to actually understand and fit in at Wynberg.
Wow. And when you say you were the only Black African kid in the school, that is scary to think. And this must have been a massive culture shock for you.
Massive one, because again, I mean, even there were two bursary boys. One was a colored guy, Warren Valentine, who obviously naturally became a very close friend of mine because we're both at boarding school. And I think there must have been like a countless other colored guys or Indian guys there. But like, it was literally, I mean, look, it's like 97 during that time, So it was a massive culture shock. But again, I mean, then I learned very quickly. I remember, I'll tell you a story when I went to provincial trials as a Western Province prep guy. So usually you'd go as a Khayelitsha player, you'll rock up there, they'll be like, oh, what do you do? I'm like, I'm a batsman. And then they'll be like, oh, okay, cool. And you'll go bat number 8 or whatever. So you are rocked up now as a Western Province prep kid with the badge and the socks. They'll be like, oh, what do you do? I'm like, I'm a batsman. Like, oh, okay, cool, go pad up. I was like, oh, okay. So while I was padding up, this is when like it hit me. So one of the kids, I forgot his name. Actually ended up at Runabouts, but I forgot his name. We were padding up. He looks at me, he goes, "Oh, you got wet pups?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." He goes, "For cricket?" I'm like, "Yeah." And then he goes, "Oh, you must be really good." And then it hit me. It's like, oh, hang on. Like other kids are paying school fees, and I'm just there for cricket. So I gotta be better than all of them. Like it was 12, I was 12 years old, I remember it. And I remember I went to that net so nervous because I felt like that was an expectation now that, oh, he's got a bursary, this kid's gotta be amazing. So that's the, to be quite honest, all throughout high school as well, that's the pressure. That is the only real pressure that I actually felt at those schools.
Yo, that is hectic. I can't even start to imagine it.
No,
And
100%.
yeah, it's a challenge that I anticipated it, but I didn't think it would be to that degree that you've just mentioned now. And
Yeah,
for me already, there's so many questions now circling in my head.
yeah,
So as a young man from Khayelitsha,
yeah,
is it enough for, you mentioned now that they just pay your fees and you get there? Is it
yeah.
enough that they pay your fees and you can attend that school? Is that enough support as a bursary holder?
No, 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 not even close. And again, we'll probably get to it as we go along with the guys that I mentor at those schools, the bursary boys. I always tell the people like you can't just pay the school fees and pay the boarding house and think everything is done. You know what I mean? There's a social aspects to it. You know what I mean? Simple things. Boys are staying at the hostel. They're chilling with friends over the weekend. Friends want to go to Cavendish to watch a movie. You don't have $100 on you. You don't have data on you. You don't. You know what I mean? Like it's all those little things that come into it. Also, you're struggling with the language. You're struggling with, with maths, with geography. What do you do? Do you take extra lessons? And you're not going to ask for extra lessons because nobody else is taking it. So you don't want to seem stupid. You know what I mean? So it's all the tutoring. Who's paying for that? You know what I mean? He's going on a school, on a provincial tour, school cricket tour, rugby tour, whatever. Who's paying for that? He broke his cricket bat on a Tuesday at practice. Does he have another one by Thursday? It's all those things for me that we need to look after. And I think the people who organize these things, I mean, look, they're doing a great job and they're probably not aware of the situation, but we need to actually look at it holistically and we need to be very honest with ourselves. Are we looking, as for a bursary boy, are we looking for the next Rabada or the next Sia Kolisi, or are we just looking for a success story? And I think a success story for me, because a very few amount of kids actually make it in sport, very, very few. And whether you're a bursary boy or not, you know what I mean? So I feel we should look for a success story, a well-rounded kid who's going to come out of school, go get his degree, and be somebody. You know what I mean? I feel like there's too much emphasis is put on the sport part and not the academic, and I feel like the support is put on the more on the sports side and not holistically.
Wow, that's massive. And
Yeah,
if anyone's sitting out there hearing what Wanga is saying, 100%. And that's definitely a challenge that, as you mentioned, it's your experience, it's your story, and it matters. And to be there and to make sure that it doesn't happen to the next person, hats off to you for actually coming out and speaking up. And like you said, it's that success story that, you would want to see. Now, coming back to you, Wanga,
yeah,
you've been picked up, you this kid who's brilliant at cricket.
yeah.
In your own words, now looking back, what made you not go all the way?
Um, I always tell people that I don't think I was good enough. I've always been honest about that. I mean, I look at the guys that we played with and we played against who went on to become, pros. Like I told you, like I said before, like a small margin of them, very small margin of the guys end up to being pro, and even a smaller margin actually make a success of being a pro. So again, I mean, I didn't think I was. And then also, I don't think I really didn't want to. It sounds weird because I I, I played with the guys who wanted it. Like I played, like you could say a guy like JP Dumini wanted to, you know what I mean? You see, the way they work, the hard they work, the extra work they put in. Um, I grew up in that era where you played the game because you just love the game, and you happen to be good at it, and you happen to be there. and then you enjoy it and you play it and you want to do well for your school. If you pick provincially, you want to do well, and you don't think, you remember there wasn't a pipeline system then, so firstly, I didn't think I was good enough. But yeah, again, I mean, remember, I I literally had a cricket contract since I was 12. I always tell people that, because if you're a pro, you get picked by a franchise or a club or whatever. They say, we'll pay you to play cricket for us for the next 3 years. If you don't do well, you obviously lose your contract. So that's actually how I viewed my bursary. I knew that I had a cricket bursary and I knew that I had to do well. And if I don't do well, in my mind, I thought, well, I can't be playing second team or third team, and here people are paying for me to play cricket at the school. You know what I mean? So I felt that if I didn't do well at cricket at school, I would lose the bursary. So I just put all my energy there. So when I left school, it was actually a relief. In fact, I didn't play cricket for, I think, for like a year and a half after school. I was just like, phew, relief. Now I can just, play for fun. I can just relax now, just do whatever I want, and obviously eventually I came back, but I literally did feel like I was a pro all those years.
And you say that, and just from listening to you, it points to, like I said, a bursary is great, but again, the pressures that come with that bursary, the need to perform, you actually stop enjoying the game, and that actually takes away from your performance on the field. And that again is a long, long conversation. But
Yeah.
Wonga, time is moving. Anyone just joined in now? We're talking to Wonga Matshabane. And Wonga, where are you now?
Now I'm a coach, man. I think for the first time in a long time, I can actually answer that question with that. You obviously, I'm involved with quite a lot of things. But if we just keep it to sport, I'm involved in sport. That's I think for the next 3 years, next 3 to 4 years, I got quite a nice project happening at Khayelitsha Cricket Club. I started coach. I went back to coaching last year at the club, and we've got a nice bunch of youngsters, nice bunch of set up there. So I think that's going to be quite a nice project. And then also my private cricket and rugby coach, coach at school. So I think the main thing now is cricket. For the last couple of, since 2014, it's been a lot. It's been a bit of radio there, a bit of events, a bit of coaching, a bit of that. But I think, yeah, for the next couple of years, the main thing, I'm just going to keep it coaching. I will still do the other things, but if somebody asks me what do you do, I'm definitely going to say I'm a coach. So yeah, it's actually quite an exciting project, and I say it's a project because it's definitely a work in progress, and we're going to be doing some amazing things there, 100%.
I'm excited, Wonga. I'm really excited to see what this project entails, and to just see it unfold in the next couple of years will be great. And you've said you're one guy who's gone back to Khayelitsha Cricket Club, which I take my hat off to, because a lot of guys who've grown up in that environment now leave, and then they're playing for the Rondebosch, the Clermonts, and don't actually go back to their clubs, and their clubs suffer. And you see that even with Langa Cricket Club, where in the Premier League not doing so well, but then they've got so many guys who could be playing there. And it's it's cricket, so I could talk forever. But I think,
100%.
like you said, you're in there, you're coaching, and how do you see yourself empowering the next generation from where you are now?
It's hey, it's going to be a long story, but I'll tell you a simple thing, a very simple story. It's actually happening right now. There's a kid. He's about 15 years old. He actually plays for a school, and he had a bit of a problem at school, whatever. So I get a phone call. Coach, can I speak to you? I speak to him. I hear his problem. I said, look, let me speak to your mom. This is what I think needs to happen. Go to the school. This is what needs to happen, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Rocks up at practice tomorrow, coach. Everything is sorted. You know what I mean? So for me, I do see myself, because somebody who's been around in I think I'm connected enough for me to make the phone calls that other people can't. And I definitely do use that privilege. I will not lie to you. Last year, again, I mean, there was a kid who couldn't find a school. It was literally a pickup to a headmaster, said, listen, there's a cricket kid. He can play. He needs to go to school. Next thing, the kid is actually at boarding school now. So I'm somebody who can do that. So look, coaches come and go, but I feel like if somebody has I don't want to say power because that's the wrong word. You know, if somebody has the ability, he's got the connection, and he's got the trust of the people in power, I'm definitely going to be using that. So that's the first thing I want to be doing. I want these kids to do well, not just as cricketers, but as people. It's literally, I feel like as a coach, I'm just usually using kids. I'm using the sport as the vehicle to make our players better as human beings. To be quite honest.
Wanga, what a hero. I love that. I love what you just
Come
said
guy
there.
now.
I do. Honestly, I do. It's nice to see guys extend an arm out to the young boys and girls also coming up. And, you know, you've had experiences which you have knowledge in, and there's pitfalls that you fell in and you don't want the next generation to fall in. And ladies and gentlemen, again, if you've just joined, we've got Wonga Matshabane here. He's chatting to us. As you can hear, what a hero. If you need anything, pick up the phone. You can phone Wanga. He can make any phone call. He makes things happen.
This guy.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time again. Please pop your questions in the chat if you've got anything that you want to ask Wanga, and Wanga will gladly answer that. Now, Wanga, while everyone types something in the chat,
Yeah.
looking back now, what would you mentioned a lot about when you were 12, 13.
Yeah.
What would you tell that 12-year-old Wanga today?
12-year-old me. Pick your fights. that'll literally be it. I bumped heads. I bumped a lot of heads growing up with people that probably shouldn't have. I was very outspoken, you know. You see, the thing is, there were so few of us, you know. There were so few of us. And I was actually saying this to a friend. I said, my first sporting heroes then were actually schoolboys. I remember when I was 14, I watched Kobani Bobo, who went on to be a Springbok, play for Rondebosch. Sawunja brothers, they were also in the same team, and I thought they were amazing. They were my favorite rugby players, and they were in high school. My favorite bowler at the time was a guy like Alpen Gom, you know, who I thought was amazing. He went on to play for SA schools as well. The first time I saw Tami Tolegele keep, I was 14. They were playing at Newlands with Wambeck in a day-night final. I thought it was amazing. So I knew those guys I was like, oh, I want to be these guys, but they were schoolboys, you know. So when I got into a position where I needed somebody to, like, when I needed a Wonga, like, your coach can, you know, I never had that. So I fought those fights by myself, and I might have made a couple of people very angry at me. So I don't know, but I don't think it would have changed my outcome when it comes to me furthering on as a cricketer. I don't think so. But it's again, if I acted differently then, I suppose it wouldn't have been in character, and I would have had a problem with that as well.
Yep, pick your fights. You heard it here from Wanga. Pick your fights. And we've just had Uludogazi right up in the chat here that coaches are deputy parents. Do you agree with that?
Sometimes, yeah, I think so. I think because, you know, it's probably a trust thing, you know. Obviously, when you coach, there's a lot of things, you know, players go through. You know, you go through a lot of emotion. I mean, you know what it's like in the changing room, you know. I've definitely seen a couple of people being close to tears. I've shared those emotions with the players, so there's definitely a trust thing, and sometimes they do feel they can tell me something they will never tell their parents. Certainly the younger guys, like with my private coaching, especially with the rugby, when the boys are going through something, and especially at that age, at 13, 14 years old, you know, they don't want to tell their parents that they've got a girlfriend. So they'll come and tell me, and I have to break the news quietly to the parents, and you know, some even more serious things. But yeah, I think, yeah, deputy parents, yeah, sounds about right. But again, it depends where you coach. Definitely where I coach, you do become that. You become a mentor, you become a parent, a sponsor. If a kid needs something, you try and make all of those things work for them.
At Wongs, there's quite a question. You have to read it. Pardon me, I'm looking over here reading it.
No worries.
But it's from Sboza Tapu. Please pardon me if that pronunciation is wrong. Sport is an extremely important life teacher, and you can make an argument that a lot of work needs to be done to get more kids in the game, particularly in the township. What's your view on how this can be achieved effectively? That's a fantastic question.
Schools, it's a no-brainer. We cannot be dependent on clubs. Even with your soccer, man, I played soccer. Soccer was probably my first sport until I was 14. I played at school 3 times a week. We had 2 practices, you have a game, and then I practiced at club twice a week, and then a game on Saturday. So I literally played soccer from Monday until Saturday. So if you want, that's why our rugby numbers will never go down. Our cricket guys coming through the system will never go down. Why? Because the schoolboy system has a conveyor belt. We need to do that in the townships. We used to have it's called Sports Wednesday. So every Wednesday was just sports day. Monday you're practicing, Tuesday you're practicing, Wednesday you've got a match. You know what I mean? So that used to happen. That needs to happen again. And it literally breaks my heart that if a kid wants to play cricket, he needs to go to Khayelitsha Cricket Club or 1 or 2 schools to play the game. If there's a school called Khayelitsha where Gary Kirsten's got the academy and they've got players there, they've got cricket there, but when they need to actually play against another school, they need to leave Khayelitsha. There is another school putting their hand up and saying, yeah, we'll play you. So, I mean, it's a great question from sponsor and it's true. I honestly believe we need to go back to schoolboy sport, under 9s, 10, 11, all sports, and let's get the kids playing.
We've got 5 minutes to go, Wonga, and just to build on that last question. Just to build on that last question, Wonga, yeah. I'm going to ask you quite a tough one, and I know it's been discussed quite a lot. And why do we have so few Black African batsmen in South Africa?
Yeah, batting is a difficult skill. It's a difficult skill, and you actually need to bat all the time. To score 100, you need to bat for a couple of hours, but it's going to be quite difficult if you only bat it for 20 minutes during the week. What I always notice when I coach privately is, I'll be at Claremont giving throwdowns, and then the other 2 nets, their parents, giving throwdowns to their kids, and they'll be there for 2 hours. They go there 3 times a week. He's got school practice as well. For me, I honestly believe it's time. We don't spend time batting. Our guys don't spend time batting, and also the expectation. After I played in Claremont, remember, I went back to play in Khayelitsha. So while I was playing there, I started seeing how many guys batters were happy with a 35 or a 40. You know what I mean? So it's an expectation. It's like, oh, if I get 40, then I've done well. And where I played cricket before, you get 530s, you're probably gonna get dropped. So it's a mental thing, and yeah, it is a tough one, but I actually don't have the answers to how we're gonna get a township boy batting in the nets for the whole week, the same hours as a boy from Rondebosch. One, there's a facility issue. 2, parents don't have time. Dad doesn't have time to go through to, you know what I mean? So it's that is one issue. That is one side to look at it. But also, again, I always say we don't have good examples. Temba is the first Black batsman to play in Test cricket, and I feel like we need more of Tembas. We need to see our own people at that level playing, batting. Our kids, it's great. They want to be AB de Villiers, but let's give them options. And you know what I mean? So we need them to aspire to something a bit more as well. So yeah, I think time and hopefully it's going to change. I mean, there's a couple of guys in the franchise system that have done quite well. So hopefully they'll come through, and hopefully our boys can take an example.
Fantastic. Once we're going to squeeze in one more question here.
Cool.
From Bulelani Menze. Bulelani, how are you? He says, evening's easy. With the situation in our township sports as it is right now, how can we improve it and also see our cricket clubs do better in their respective leagues?
I've always been an advocate of if our clubs want to succeed, they got to be self-sustainable. And if you're not self-sustainable, anything else that you do will not yield the results. You know what I mean? So unfortunately, we don't own our clubs. for us to operate, we need association to give us money for transport. We need, we need X, Y, Z, and clubs that succeed are self-sustainable. So I feel until we can be in a situation where we say, okay, cool, Wonga is the first team coach, Buyelane is the second team coach, and here's your assistant. So and so is under 15, here's your assistant. Here, we're paying you, we're paying this much, we're paying this much, until we can be self-sustainable as clubs and actually own our cricket clubs. Then we can start making decisions, I feel, that can better influence the outcome of our situation. That's the first part. And then because all of a sudden Wonga is gonna have time now. Wonga doesn't have to coach at Saks. Wonga doesn't have to do, private coaching. Wonga's job is to coach Khayelitsha Cricket Club. Why? Because there's a sponsor who's just invested, not given, invested 200,000 at Khayelitsha Cricket Club. Why? Because I want to see Khayelitsha Cricket Club play in the Premier League in the next 3 years. See, now there is a plan. At the moment, it's very difficult to plan if you have nothing. So what you want to do, you just want to sustain what you have. Basically, just want to keep the club alive, and that's not enough. You know what I mean? So unfortunately, if we had more, I believe our clubs are already punching way above their weight. So I believe if we had sustainable income, good sponsorships, good partners who share the same vision as what we want to achieve, and I truly, truly believe we could go as far as we can imagine.
Yeah, and I love that you took away that word donation. It's that donor mentality now sort of holds us back at times. And like you said, if the club is self-sustainable, then it can definitely go somewhere. And if the community itself feels like they own it, then it's likely to go forward. But look, we're running out of time, but I have to ask you this question. The theme has been around the township. But we're here as Africa Sports Consultancy. We want to help empower a kid in the township somewhere. So with all the drugs, the guns, the violence, what can you tell a kid who loves their sport, but they're there in the township as we speak?
I think the examples are right in front of them. And I feel like there are enough people in the township who've made success of their lives and made, success of their choices for to be pointed and say, look at him. You know what I mean? Like, there is an option. You know what I mean? So, and I always believe that if somebody has done it before, you can do it too. You know what I mean? So I love it. I was having a chat with Malusi Siboto, I think it was last year when I was in Pretoria. Malusi was, with those who don't know, he plays for the Lions from Gualang. And I said to him, for me, when I coach for the first time, I had myself saying, I need your wrist to be here. Have you watched how Malusi bowls? And I was like, wait, I just used Malusi, who was my junior in high school, as an example in a cricketing term. And that's a win. I didn't say hold it like Delston. I didn't say hold it like, you know what I mean? I found myself using him as an example. So there are those examples around our communities, and they've got options, to be quite honest. They do have options.
Love it. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. Wonga is a guy who, if we give the mic to, we could be here all night. But thank you so much for joining us, and your insights, Wonga, so invaluable. And, keep doing what you're doing, and we'll definitely keep your eyes on the project.
Thank you, bud. Thanks for having me, man.
Cheers. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in, for watching all the way through here with Wonga tonight. And hopefully this message gets to someone who needs to hear it. And from my side here, I just want to say I hope you have a good evening and that we see you again here next week. For those of you who watched here for the first time, every Thursday, 7:30, we will be here on the show, on the live, bringing you guests. Let's remember COVID is still a reality. Let's keep our masks on. Let's keep sanitizing. Let's keep looking after our loved ones. From my side, it's a good night, and we'll see you again next week. Same place, same time.